Between my job, kids, and chores, I don't have time for full day canning marathons. But guess what? I still preserve enough food to feed my family all year round without giving up my weekends. If you've ever let a whole basket of tomatoes or any kind of harvest for that matter go to waste because you didn't have time to do anything with it, you're not alone. Especially with beginner homesteaders, when you're first starting out, you get to gardening and you finally get to the harvest stage and you're so excited and you use everything fresh that you possibly can. But if you're a busy mom and you work full time, you simply just don't have the time to preserve your harvest, or so you thought. So by the end of this video, you're going to have some tips and tricks on how you can start preserving your harvest so it's not going to waste, but in little bursts. So you're not spending full days canning or preserving your harvest. We're going to do it in short little 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes here and there. That way it's manageable for you. Food preservation doesn't have to be a full-time event. It's about trying to fit it in little segments of your life. You don't have to wash everything, cut everything, can everything, do it all in one sitting. You can do it in different sections of the day. So for instance, when it comes to my tomatoes are in full swing right now. And I do not have time every single day to go through and get them ready for canning. So what I do is I pick them, I wash them, and then I core them, cut them up into chunks. Now, if they're small enough, I obviously don't need to do that. And then they go in a freezer bag and into the freezer. And that is where they will sit until I have time or energy to make some sauce or to make some salsas. And that is perfectly fine. And it's actually the easiest way to keep your food ready, I guess you can say, until you're ready for harvest. I literally pulled out a bag of frozen tomatoes from last year because I never got around to making a sauce and canning it. And when I ran out of my homemade spaghetti sauce this year, I just pulled a bag out of the freezer and made another batch. It was really nice just to have those ready. And while I usually would prefer them to be shelf stable on my shelf, that doesn't always happen, right? As busy moms, as we're working, some things get done, some things get forgotten about. But my point is that you can still make this work for you and your lifestyle without ruining or throwing away your harvest, letting it all go to compost or to your animals. You can do the same thing with berries. At the beginning of the summer, I always go through to my local farm and I pick a shit ton of blueberries so that I don't have to buy any from the store. I don't have my own blueberries and I don't plan on growing any, but I go every single year to this farm and like I said, I pick a whole bunch and then I go through and I just freezer pack them. They're in ready to go bags in 1 cup measurement. So I can easily just grab and go if I want to make some muffins or pancakes, want to pull them out for yogurt or for ice creams or whatever. And it was actually cheaper to do it this way. Yes, I had to spend a little bit of my time, but it was definitely worth it for the taste, and the harvest itself is always so peaceful going out and picking blueberries, and it's not as time consuming as you would think it is. And it's, like I said, it's cheaper and it's definitely healthier than what you buy at the store. I also do this with my peppers. For instance, I'm planning on making some smoked hot sauces. So all these jalapenos I'm picking, the ones that I'm not going through and canning, I am just simply cutting the heads off and throwing them all in a bag. And when I have some time, I will go through and I will cut them in half, throw them on the smoker, get a good smoke on them, and then I can go through and add all of my other ingredients and make a delicious smoked hot sauce with it. Now, as for my green peppers, I generally eat most of the green peppers as they are fresh and ready. I use them in a lot of my dishes, but I do the same thing as I do with my tomatoes. I have them all frozen and I actually cut these up into more usable chunks. And then I can add them to my salsas or sauce or pull them out for casseroles or whatever else. By the end of my canning season, most of these things will be out of my freezer and into cans. But like I said, some things will still end up being in the freezer that I never got to, but it's still usable. And that's okay. I think that was a chicken. I don't know. I just seen something black run by me. You want to choose the right preservation method for your timing schedule. And after freezing is always my go-to. Dehydrating is my second. I have my dehydrator sitting on my kitchen counter all harvest season long, just because it's an easy set it and forget it. You just have to make sure you have the timer set and the temperature set correctly so it is appropriately dehydrating your harvest for fairly cheap on a lot of different stores, websites, Amazons, and you can get them that come with timers. They have digital thermometers, multiple racks. You can even make homemade fruit roll-ups with them. I definitely recommend getting them, especially if you're super busy. Like I said, they're not super expensive. And then the next, of course, is going to be canning. And when you're first starting out, canning can seem really daunting. And when I first started out, canning was an all-day adventure for me. I would be doing everything, preparing my harvest, washing my jars, getting everything ready like the day of. And it would take me most of the day just because I was unsure of myself and I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted to make sure that I was canning it right so it was safe for my family and that it would taste good. But the more time and more practice you get canning, the easier it gets. And the more you realize that you can split it up into time segments, if you will. So for instance, I was talking about canning my jalapenos. I like doing pickled jalapenos. And so I can go through and have all of my jalapenos cut up and ready the night before as I am cleaning up the kitchen. After dinner, I can put all of my jars into my dishwasher. So I'm sterilizing them, right? And then I can also make my brine the night before. I can go through and just make the brine while I'm doing dinner, let it cool down, and it's ready. Now, when you're canning, and as you start learning more and more, you always want to do cold liquid, cold jars, hot liquid, right? So I'm doing everything cold packed, cold brine. So in the morning, when I wake up, I can easily just pull my clean jars out of the dishwasher, pack all of my jalapenos in there, pull my brine out because it's ready, pour it over all of my jalapenos, do the thing, go through and clean my rims, sterilize my lids and my rings, and then put them in my water bath canner. And then I can just get ready for the day. And by the time I'm done, my pickled jalapenos are ready to take out of the water bath canner. I can put them on the counter and bang, they're done. Now, as a beginner, that might seem a little bit scary, but like I said, it's quick and simple. Pickling is probably the easiest, in my opinion, to can. If you're doing a small batch of like tomato sauce by say, you can also use this little hack as well. There are a lot of different tomato recipes, and putting it in the crock pot is honestly the easiest way that you can possibly do it. Normally when I do tomato sauces, I do really big batches just because it makes a big mess and I need a lot of produce, and it's time consuming to make tomato sauce, especially when you're first starting out. But the easiest hack is, so you take your recipe and you throw everything into a crock pot. Make sure your tomatoes are cut up, everything is cut up like it's supposed to be, and all of your liquid. And remember that it will look like there's not enough liquid, but as everything cooks down, those tomatoes will release all their juices. And set it on low, let it cook overnight. And when you wake up in the morning, that's going to be ready to put into like a blender or to use one of your handheld immersion blenders, and bam, it's done. Now, most of the time, those recipes can make like 4 pints, and then you can go through and pressure can them the next day, or like make a really big batch of lasagna. You can make two casseroles of lasagna and freeze one. There's a lot of different ways that you can save time. So don't think just because you're a working mom that you can't preserve your own harvest. You can also use your meal plan time, or let's say just dinner time while you're prepping dinner, to get a little bit more of harvest preserved. Like I said before, freezing is always the easiest. Let's say you're making a casserole or a stir fry and you're cutting up some carrots, cut up twice as many, freeze half. Why not? And same thing with like your kitchen scraps that you're not giving to your animals. So let's say some of your peppers and onions that aren't getting used, or your bones. You can go through and put all these things in a gallon baggie and put them in the freezer to make broth for later. When I do homemade chicken, I honestly almost always put the full carcass into the crock pot, and then after the chicken's done, I take all the meat off, leave the bones and whatever's in there, and then I'm adding garlic and onions and whatever else I want to, and then I leave the whole carcass in there for a whole nother day, and then I can go through and can that for chicken bone broth. Now for beef, we generally don't have enough. I'm usually doing like 1 steak, 2 steaks maybe at a time. And so those bones I will put into a gallon baggie and put them in the freezer. So when I have a full gallon baggie, I can make a large batch of strong, nutritious beef broth. Now, when you're ready to do bigger batches and you're ready to pull some of these things out of the freezer, you can use your overflow days, the days that you don't have a whole lot planned, and you can go through and take out these things the night before. Like I said, like with your tomatoes, take them out the night before, let them thaw on the counter, and then use your Sunday, or for me personally, it's my Monday. I don't work Mondays, to go through and make larger batches to can or to preserve or do whatever with it you want to. Breaking everything down like this, being able to put it into the freezer or dehydrator, it spreads your work over your days, weeks, months, instead of trying to cram it all into one weekend or letting a lot of your harvest go to waste. Now, do keep in mind that you need to be organized. Now, do keep in mind that you need to be organized if you're putting a lot of things into your freezer. Always make sure that you are labeling your bags or whatever you're putting your harvest in, putting the date on it. And also, if you have a deep freezer, I recommend putting, I got a bee flying around me. I recommend putting like a piece of paper on your deep freezer. You can get those clear inserts that you can put your paper in so that like your paper doesn't get ripped or stained or whatever, and tape it to the top, because oh my gosh, it's so easy to lose things into a deep freezer. I've pulled things out of the deep freezer before that I was like, man, this is from like 2 years ago. I didn't even know this was in here, because things get shuffled around. They get moved to the bottom, and just simply putting that piece of paper on top of your freezer when you're adding something to your freezer, put it on your list. When you take something out of your freezer, cross it off. It will definitely make a world of difference, and you already know what's in there without having to open it. The point of this video is that you don't need endless time to secure and preserve your harvest, that even as a busy working mom, you still can do small tasks that add up over time to preserve your harvest and make sure you're not wasting anything. So I hope this helped, and I hope that if you don't have a garden because you're a busy working mom, that this gives you faith in yourself to realize like, yeah, I could do those. Like I could do that while I'm doing dinner, or I can simply just throw a bag of tomatoes in the freezer and then on a lazy Sunday make some sauce. I hope this inspires you and helps you realize that you can do it, and that just because you're working and have kids, that you can still have a garden and preserve your own harvest. Now, I did make a quick and easy preservation guide for busy moms, something you can just easily print out and throw on your freezer as a beginner, and you're like, wait, what am I supposed to do with that? Or what can I do with that? It's free, printable. I'll put the link down below. It's on my blog, and happy homesteading. I will see you guys next time. And remember, just because you're a busy working mom doesn't mean you can't homestead.